All Things Covered listeners and viewers. Man, Minnesota Viking fans, stand up. You guys have been rocking with us year in and year out, week in and week out. I said year in and year out. We actually made our 1 year anniversary a few months ago. But, you know, speaking things into existence, right? Manifesting and allowed to happen. But Viking fans, they're always rocking with us. And, you know, got number 7 rocking with behind me, Pat Peterson, playing for the Vikings. But, man, we got a treat for you guys today. Of course, we've always tapped into the history of the Vikings organization. You know, we've had Chris Carter on, we've had Jared Allen on. In today's episode, we got another Minnesota Viking legend joining me here. All Things Covered, Pat P, Bryant McFadden, standout linebacker from the University of Iowa, Big Ten stand-up. He terrorized Big Ten offensively, running backs, quarterbacks. Anybody he put that Rydell on, they felt the pain. Because of his success at Iowa, he became a first-round selection by the Minnesota Vikings in 2006, a 2-time Pro Bowler. Let's keep it real, guys. He should have been a 4, 5, 6-time Pro Bowler, but we know sometimes the Pro Bowler could be a celebrity-type contest, but he only made 2. That's an issue. No other than Minnesota Viking, Iowa Hawkeye legend, Chad Greenway, joining us here, All Things Covered. Chad, how you doing? First and foremost, Chad, let's keep it real. I mean, for the people that's watching us on YouTube, you're not at home. You're not in your bedroom. You're not in your man cave. You're actually in the car. Now, viewers, he's not driving. So we're doing this the right way. Safety protocols will be utilized in this taping of this show. But, Chad, fill us in on your scenery right now and what you got going on.
Yeah, well, first of all, that's a great intro. I appreciate that. And I love the shout out for the 4 or 5 Pro Bowls because that's true.
No question.
But yeah, so we're on the road. Obviously, Thanksgiving holiday tomorrow. I got the crew back here. They're all distracted with some sort of technology. I got the boss driving here. Mm-hmm. So I apologize for the bright lights and maybe the bad audio, but we're gonna find a way as we always do. And I just really appreciate the time to be on, man. This will be fun.
No question. This is what I call reality podcasting at its best. We're not hitting you with any filters. This is the real of the real of the real. And we appreciate you joining us as well. I got drafted a year before you, but when you became a part of the Minnesota Vikings, I'm a football guy. Number one, you was a hell raiser at Iowa, but instantly when you got into the league, man, and when you got healthy, man, you definitely was a big time playmaker. So this is a tribute. Me and Chad was kind of shooting the breeze before we actually started recording, and he was talking about LSU, playing LSU one time in the Capital One Bowl, and I was just like, "Is that the Hail Mary game?" He was like, "Yes, that's the catch. That's the catch." Yeah. Yeah, so when it comes to football history, there's not a lot that they can run with me when it comes to who did this or what team played where or what happened this. I can go with the best of them, Chad, but I rock with you, man. I appreciate your career collegiately and professionally. It's an honor for you to be on the show with us right now. So let's go back. Let's take it back, right? Let's go back to the beginning. You grew up in South Dakota, right? South Dakota. Who was your NFL team? What was your favorite team growing up as a child?
Yeah, that's a good one. South Dakota is kind of a free agent when it comes to NFL teams and college teams. Because I was actually going to tell you when we were chatting before the podcast started, I was a big FSU fan growing up.
No,
I don't know why, but it might have something to do with Peter Warrick because Peter Warrick.
Who was your favorite FSU player?
Oh, Warrick for sure.
Okay,
not even a question. Yeah, I mean, I was because growing up I was a quarterback. I returned kicks, played safety. So just loved FSU. I had that old starter jacket with the big pocket in front.
Yes, sir.
FSU colors, and which was different because where I grew up, a lot of Cornhusker fans, in the 90s. Mm-hmm. Some Iowa fans, but big time FSU fans. So then growing up, I also played 9-man football, which is a little, very unique, super small town, and so playing 9-man ball, which of course we didn't think was anything different. But I get to Iowa and realized everybody else plays with 11 guys instead of 9. But that was interesting. But as far as growing up, I was a big 49ers fan. That was Joe Montana, Steve Young. So I was a quarterback. So I followed the quarterbacks. And then I was a huge Ronnie Lott fan. When I heard the story about the finger and then watching him make contact and watching him just hit and run through guys, from a kid growing up in a super small town and not necessarily a hotbed of a state of football. Like South Dakota is, it was, you had to dream big. You had to figure out a way to put yourself in that position someday. And so pretty amazing I was able to make it.
Wow. I'm so surprised here in the Florida State
Yeah, that's right.
story. Like, man, because boy, if man,
Charlie Ward though. I mean, those guys had grown up.
yeah.
I mean, it was so fun to watch. And the thing is, they were so good, so they were always on TV, and we only had a few channels.
Yes. No question.
So we only had a few channels, and they were always on. So,
they were always on ABC at 3:30.
Yep, always
with Jackaroo. You got Keith Jackson.
Oh,
yes,
yeah. So get the chop going.
When you started playing football, you mentioned 9-man football. At any point in your high school career, was Florida State still a team that you loved, and would you have mind playing for them?
Oh my gosh, yeah, that would have been. Obviously, when I grew up in a small town like that, in a state that nobody recruits, it was not easy to get found. So, I just had the one scholarship offer to Iowa. That was it. So I didn't really have much. I didn't really get to go shop around for my scholarship opportunities like a lot of other guys did. So I took what came, and that was Iowa, which, looking back, I mean, just lucky that was a school that came after me, because they realized that I wasn't going to be a safety real quick. I played quarterback for about 6 minutes, and then they moved me to like, nope, you're going to safety. And then I started lifting weights and getting bigger, and they're like, okay, he's getting faster. He's getting bigger. Let's move him to linebacker. And that was a great transition. So I'd have loved to play at Florida State, but that wasn't reality at that time.
Oh, well, heck, I know. I probably would have. We would probably been together maybe a year or so, because I was drafted 1 year before you. So, boy,
it's been nasty.
Oh, no question. But it all worked out well for you. You made the most of your opportunities, and getting drafted, you were a part of a nice linebacker class. I mean, names that will ring a bell to you and our listeners and our viewers. A.J. Hawk was in that class. Ernie Sims, Bobby Carpenter, D'Amico Ryans, A.J. Hawk, Ernie Sims went first. A.J. went to SC.
AJ was at Ohio State.
Ohio State. Oh, and Carpenter was Ohio State as well. D'Amico was Alabama. Throughout your professional career, did you monitor those guys throughout your career? Because you know how it is when you get drafted, especially when guys get drafted in the same round with you playing the same position, you always kind of try to see what they're doing. Did you monitor their career throughout your professional career?
Always, yeah. I mean, Rocky McIntosh was another guy that was ranking with the Redskins. He was like, I think, top
from Miami
pick.
From Miami.
Yep. So you had a bunch of backers picked in that top 6, and all kind of the same style. So I mean, I got fortunate because I got drafted to a scheme that really fit my ability. We were playing Tampa 2. We were doing a lot of coverage stuff that I was used to doing in college. Oh, we had a fight. We had a fight. First fight of the podcast here. But you naturally do kind of. How's AJ doing over there? He's got my money, right? He was a 5th overall pick. I want to see what he's doing with my money over there, or Ernie, because Ernie was in the top. Ernie, I think, went number 9.
He went 6. Oh, he went 9. He went 9.
I think he went 9, and then and then Ernie, I never really, I didn't really feel bad because Ernie had to deal with some really bad losing seasons. But man, Ernie could play. Man, he was so athletic. So I think those guys had great careers. So you kind of look at those guys and say, all right, they deserved it. They were drafted where they're supposed to. And I got lucky because I got drafted in the perfect situation where I could stay for 11 years and be in one spot, raise a family, and just so fortunate. So I think you look back and say, you always wonder what everybody else is doing, but at the same time, always trying to take care of your own business.
And when you got drafted in the first round by the Minnesota Vikings, everyone was, hyped about the draft pick. The organization was. I'm sure you were hyped as well. But you injured you tore your ACL in the very first preseason game. How did you handle that adversity as a young player?
Yeah, it was interesting because obviously we play the Gophers every year, so a lot of Gopher fans that were Viking fans knew about me, right? So they had watched me play for 4 years. Just got we went 4-0 against the Gophers. Got to throw that in there real quick because there's a little jab. But when I came up here, people were excited because they needed backer depth. EJ Henderson had been drafted a few years before, but
from Maryland.
From Maryland, stud. And he really hadn't taken off the way I think they thought. He ended up having a really nice career, but at that point he was they were trying to find a position for him. And when they drafted me, they were going to move him inside and have him play Mike, which is where he should have been. But so I blew my knee out my first preseason game, and I had blown my other knee out in college. So I had done the ACL before. I had gone through that process. I had rehabbed and came back and obviously was able to finish my college career in a good spot. So I thought, okay, I can do this again. But I can remember sitting there with my wife at the time, just like, what happens now? Like, is this contract guaranteed? Like, what is the money? Like, what does it mean now? Do I think, you don't understand how you get drafted, you get the contract, you get that signed, but you don't really know what all that means and and all the rules around it at that point. As you age through your NFL career, you start to understand how that operates and you get educated on it. But at that time, you're scared. Like, you're scared of like, okay, is this one injury going to knock my, my chance of realizing my dream and not be able to come back and play and be the same player? You have all those questions. Yeah. So I think that injury, obviously at that time you were on IR and you're done for the year. You'd have this exemption and for the 8 week, and not that an ACL you came back in 8 weeks anyways, but you had a whole year to sit. So for me, it was more of a mental struggle than a physical struggle. You had the physical piece of rehabbing and coming back and trying to get back to yourself, but the mental piece of just grinding through that year, knowing you're not out there playing, knowing the unknowns of what's going to happen next was tough, but had a great training staff, the same training staff that's with the Vikings still to this day, that Double P is probably working with right now. And those guys are great. So they helped me out, got me back, and away we go. I played 10 more years after that. So it worked out.
And I totally forgot, Chad, you played with one of my high school teammates.
Who's
on
that?
The defensive side, Erasmus James.
Oh yeah. Erasmus, man. Yeah. So he had gotten drafted the year before.
Yep. In the first round from Wisconsin.
Exactly. And I came in and obviously I played against Erasmus in college. So I knew about him, and so he was a stud and was really excited about his career and where that was going to go. But, I met Erasmus early and kind of was going through he had his own injury struggles and he had to deal with some stuff too. And, it just goes to show you that being drafted to the right place. I think if Erasmus goes to another organization, I think he has more success, or has more NFL success, I should say, than he ended up having, but good dude.
Yeah. Funny story about Erasmus. Erasmus wasn't a football player. He was from the islands, and down in South Florida, we're always trying to recruit kids, you know what I mean? Especially neighboring schools or whatever the case may be. But I saw Erasmus in the hallway, and he was always playing basketball. I'm like, Erasmus, this is get ready for spring football in South Florida, which happens around May. I'm like, man, have you ever played football? He's like, oh, football. He thought I was talking about soccer. I'm like, man, American football. He should come out. So he's like, man, I don't know. I'm like, Rasmus, you like 6'4", 6'5", you're 240. You're not going to grow to be 6'8", 6'9", because you don't have any handle. So if you're not going to be 6'8", 6'9", your basketball hopes are not going to be likely. You know what I mean?
No,
so
it's over. It's over.
Yes, right. So he came out the very first day we had our pads. We got our pads. He didn't know where your thigh pads and your knee pads went. He didn't know where the thigh pads and knee pads went. He was like, yo, where's this go? I'm like, it goes in your pants. That's how unfamiliar he was of the game of football. But long story short, by the end of the spring, Chad, because I was already kind of known in the county, I was getting scouts coming to watch me practice. By the end of spring, he had like 6 offers by the end of spring. So his first time playing was spring football. And then going into the season, which was fall, getting ready for fall, I mean, his offers improved about 14.
It's not even fair though. That South Florida football is a different animal, man. I mean, it is different down there. And then we don't have anything we don't have spring ball up north. We have the bad weather, we don't have that going on. So man, you guys got all the advantages. But you mentioned something that's interesting is Erasmus, where he's from. I don't know what that genetic pool is in the Caribbean islands, but it is elite. It is elite. Everybody's got like long arms and they got the athletic build and they can all run and jump. And it's like, what is going on? I want some of that.
No question. But it was a funny story. He didn't like football and play football. And I told Rasmus when because he was the Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year, I think his last year in the Big Ten, go first round. I'm like, okay, I'm not saying you owe me a little percentage, but I'm kind of saying like a nice dinner or something, because you didn't even want to play football. But I was able to convince him.
That's a steak dinner for sure, man. You got to get something out of that.
Big time steak. I'm talking about Wagyu. I'm talking about Kobe like style. Big time steak. But it all worked out well for him. And speaking of big time things, your first career came off of former Viking Dante Culpepper, and your first pick 6 came off Eli Manning. What interception is the most memorable one for you?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good ones. Eli, that was a fun year because they ended up on winning Super Bowl that year. At the end of the year in 2007, man, they were garbage. And how they won the Super Bowl, I have no idea. But they figured it out, man. Eli got hot.
Yeah.
But I picked off Phillip Rivers in 2015, and that was my longest pick 6 of 91 yards, and that was that was sweet because at that point in my career, right, in my 9th or 10th year, and you're the grandpa of the locker room, you're the old man, and everybody wanted me to score that touchdown. You get to see the sideline go crazy, and you look at the all 22, and you can see they gave me a gravy train all the way to the sideline. There's nobody going to touch me because they wanted grandpa to get a touchdown. So, so I made it. It was fun.
Yeah. Do you remember that defensive call?
Oh, it was Zim. So we were probably in 42 defense nickel because it was end of a game.
Mm-hmm.
So they're in hurry up. Man, I don't know that. It was a base coverage though. It was just the base coverage.
Yeah. And you got it in your sub package.
We were in a sub package. We had 5 DBs in the field and 2 backers. And but it got tipped to the line of scrimmage, and I caught it kind of with one hand, like kind of over my shoulder, and then just got up and went. Man, I had the gravy train all the way to the end zone. They got my slow butt to the end zone, so it worked out.
There's nothing better than having a cavalry guide you to the end zone, right? Nothing better.
Yeah,
nothing
better. And you know how it is in 2 minutes when you're gassed, right, at the end of the game. And Phillip, we're up like 13 or something. So he's just diming them up, and we're giving them all these yards. So you're gassed, get back to the huddle and making calls, and then you catch this thing. You look up at 91 yards, like, oh my Lord.
Yeah.
We had to find a way to get there though.
No question. One of your former teammates was just recently released, and that's Adrian Peterson, was released by the Tennessee Titans, which may mark the end of his outstanding NFL career. What was the excitement around the franchise when you guys drafted AP and with him turning into being one of the best Minnesota Vikings players of all time?
Yeah, it's you know how it is when you go to practice, right? You have a new draft pick or a new free agent, and say it's a quarterback and he makes that first throw, you're like, oh, okay, like this guy's got something. Or maybe he makes a throw, and maybe he makes the throw and you're like, I don't know, man. I don't know. You got to be better than that. Well, as soon as Adrian came in and he hit the gas for the first time and he turned that corner, you're like, I've never seen something like that before. The only other guy that came close was Percy. Percy had that same kind of burst and explosiveness. Yeah. But Adrian, you look back at your career, right, and say how many teammates do you get to have that you were a teammate for 10 years? So I got 2 of them. I got Adrian and Brian Robinson. Both had unbelievable careers.
B-Rob from University of Texas, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's a great player, character, man, good locker room guy, good dude all the way around. But Adrian's just unique. I mean, he was just the way he operated. He could be walking by a pull-up bar and hey, AP, I bet you can't do 30, and he'd do like just cold, like he's just you touch him, it's like that's not what my body's like. But the fun fact about Adrian is so my 5th grader who's back here, her and Adrian's daughter Ariana play basketball together, and I coach them. So I coach AP's daughter along with my daughter. And Ari is just she's a beast as well, just like Adrian was. So kind of cool to have a teammate for that long. Now coach his kid in hoops.
No question.
Just a fun guy to have spent your NFL career with and watch him just become a famer. So he feels like he's got gas in the tank, and positive he does. So if he keeps playing, he'll be successful.
Yeah. Well, he definitely will be in the hall when it's all said and done. And let's see exactly what happens. Another fun guy you played with, and we had him on our show also a few months ago, Jared Allen. He told us about the anticipation of, getting Brett Favre to the Minnesota Vikings and when he arrived and how it kind of changed the dynamics of the program there. What do you remember about Brett Favre and his addition to the Minnesota Vikings?
Man, that's I was sitting in the lunchroom in the cafeteria at Winter Park, and Jared, myself, we're all sitting there, and all of a sudden you see on TV. It was like I hate to make this comparison, but it was like OJ and the Bronco, right? I mean, there's a helicopter over the top of this SUV, and it's Coach Childress and Brett Favre driving in the helicopter, like the KSTP news chopper is like following this truck all the way to Winter Park, and then we're sitting there, and there's a window that kind of looks out to the parking lot, and here comes the SUV, and there's a helicopter. You're like, they come into practice, and here he is. And, you get to play with unique guys like that. They're just first ballot Hall of Famers that have just this arm talent that was unbelievable. Had a chance to play against Brett and then play with Brett. what he brought to a locker room was unique. The ability to be at that level of fame and ability, but still be able to kind of be one of the guys and just be a normal person was pretty unique. Some of the throws, I had never been around somebody where you could hear him make a throw. Like the ball whistled when he threw it because he threw it with such velocity. And I can remember the receivers having to adjust, fingers all bent out of shape and just getting hurt. And that first couple of weeks of just adjustment was amazing for the receivers. But it was crazy, man. He comes in and we had this super talented team, and all we needed was that quarterback. He came in at 09. Special. We didn't get it, but it was a special team.
Yeah, and of course, we're adding Brett Favre and the success they had. The offense got a lot of the attention. But tell us about how good and underrated that defense was. I mean, you had Pat Williams, Kevin Williams, Jared Allen, yourself, Ray Edwards, Antoine Winfield, Cedric Griffin, just to name a few. But talk about how special that unit was. They
were unbelievable. I mean, the style we were playing, we needed a really good pass rush in our front four. We got that all the time. We were great against the run. Against the run, we were absolutely elite. I thought like 58 yards a game or something crazy average at the time. And then you play with Tweez. Antoine Winfield was pound for pound to me one of the best players in NFL history. Just an absolute stud. So we had a lot of dudes that were really good players, and it was fun to be a part of it, and play a smaller role with that offense.
Yeah. You guys played complimentary football, no question. And then, of course, it ended in New Orleans. But if you guys were able to take care of your business against the Saints, how would you like the chance to play against Peyton Manning? And you think, based on what you guys did well defensively, and you talked about some of the special things you did offensively, how would that game have played out?
I don't see there's any way that we lose that game. I mean, we went to New Orleans on the road in that environment, which how hard it is, and turn the ball over 6 times and still took them to overtime. I mean, that's how good we were.
People forget about that. People forget about that element of the game. You guys played turnover-wise was sloppy, but you still had a shot to win that ball game. If you take away one of those turnovers and just have 5.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the last pick that Brett threw. Obviously, threw across his body. Makes that bad mistake, and that was the 6th turnover. I think 5th or 6th. I may be wrong on that. It's 5 or 6. But if you don't make that, we're kicking a field goal, and we're going to play Peyton. And I like our chances. I mean, I don't know. You can't put money on your own games, but man, I'd have bet all my chips on us. But the only thing that could have slowed us down was ourselves, and that was what happened in New Orleans. And we still found a way to make it competitive and get into overtime. And they had one drive that they got the field goal, and then the next year they changed the rule where you had to score a touchdown in the first drive of overtime. So they changed the rule.
1 year too late.
Yeah, it's never fun when you play in the game that they change the rule with. You'd rather play the next year, but it is what it is. I mean, you know how it is. I never got a chance to win a Super Bowl. But if I look back, how this conversation started. You play 9-man football in South Dakota. You get one scholarship and go to Iowa. You do what you do there and get drafted in the first round and play in the NFC Championship game. You could be like, is that really a failure? Right? I mean, you look at the success of your career. You'd be like, man, I don't care how that game went or if you lose. That's an impressive career. And I'm just so proud to have done it with good people and do it, and most importantly, do it my own way, which is most important.
Yeah. And I mean, you exceeded the expectations, like coming from 9-man football. To being a first-round selection, having an outstanding career, Pro Bowler, played in big-time ball games and was a contributor. It wasn't like you were just, a situational like player. No, you was a big-time contributor. So no question, there's nothing failed about your career. But I got a big-time question for you though. What's the tougher playoff loss? Saints in 09, Seahawks in 15.
Oh man, those both cut so deep in Minnesota football lore. I mean, you look at the 98 missed kick with that team, that offensive team that the Vikings had 98. I mean, I know you being a football guy, you appreciate that team because that team was just unbelievable talent. So those three losses are probably the ones that cut the deepest, other than the Super Bowl losses the Vikings have sustained in the 70s. I would say they're different because people get on kickers all the time in the league, right? Because it's so easy. You got one job. You got to be the puncher. You got to be the kicker. You got to be the snapper. But people don't understand the work like Blair Walsh puts in, right? And nobody wants to make that kick more than Blair Walsh, like on the planet. So, but the reality is, I felt bad for But and I kind of have the empathy towards Blair in that situation because, man, I don't want to be that situation. I don't have that mindset to be the kicker. So I would say 09 was much bigger because the scale was bigger and we were one game away. But one game. So that's probably the harder loss, though.
I agree with you. You one game away. You playing the championship ball game in Miami, and just knowing that you're one game away, 5 minutes away. I think I agree with you, even though I didn't participate in it. Anytime you have a tough loss, one game away from championship, I think that's probably the go-to. You know what? And I can't wait to hear what the fans say, because you talked about 98. You talked about 98, of course, 09 and 15. Yep. I'm pretty sure you might get the consensus go at 98. Consensus, some people might say 15, because that 15 team was loaded. Y'all definitely were loaded.
I think when I came up here, though, like in 06, everybody talked about the 98 team because I would, in South Dakota, we got every Vikings game. So I watched every game. And you look at the 98 team, man, I mean, that thing was signed, sealed, and delivered. That's a W. And just if, Falcons come up and get a win, it's just crazy. I feel like you look back at that game, I've watched that game back in NFL films. Man, the Vikings did it to themselves. They pulled the dogs off offensively in the second half, and like you have all those guys, man, just throw the ball up, let Randy go get it.
Yeah, it keeps going until the game is over. Never get complacent or get relaxed. So you live and you learn. This might be this is an easier one for you. This is not as tough as the playoff loss. What made you such a fan favorite in Minnesota?
I think my background, growing up in the upper Midwest in South Dakota, going to Iowa. The second thing was playing my whole career here. Obviously, people love the loyalty. People love that factor of being the one organization your whole career. And I think, being a farming background in such a rural area, a lot of Midwest values, I think people love that. So I think there's a combination of reasons. But the biggest thing was when my wife and I started our foundation in 2008. I think when you engage with the community like we did throughout our whole career, people love that you're giving back to the community, and not just an athlete or a football player, but you're engaged in the community in different ways. You're helping kids, you're helping hospitals. And we continue to do that to this day. So our foundation has been a massive part of our life. And now our goal is to pass it on to our children, to show them the value of community service and community work and selflessness. And so I think that was also a big part of kind of what made my brand as popular as it was.
Yeah. So who would you say holds the title as the biggest fan favorite right now for the current group of guys on the Vikings?
Oh, man, I know I can't say Kirk because Kirk's like this polarizing dude. I love Kirk Cousins. He's playing lights out.
Yes, he is.
But for whatever reason, even if he puts up these crazy numbers and gets our team in a chance, in the best chance to win every game, he can't win these fans over. I don't get it. I would say Harrison Smith is real high because of the way he goes about his business. I think Eric Kendricks is beloved by the passion he plays with and his playmaking ability. But as far as local guys, I think, Thielen's massive. But I think of anybody that I mentioned, I think JJ's probably get the number one right now, because I think they're seeing a reincarnation fans of Randy, right? A young Randy Moss with the plays he's making, and especially now that Kirk's believing it a little bit more and throwing balls up and let Justin go get it. I think he's going to be the guy you look at the next three years is going to be an absolute superstar, even bigger than he already is.
No question. I'm right there with you. And also it helps with him playing offense and always having the ball in his hands and score a touchdown. Yes. And the gritty. I'm pretty sure your children probably know a little bit about the gritty now. He got everybody.
I know the gritty, man. What do you mean? What do I my kids?
Exactly. You know what I mean? So those things resonate when it comes to, being popular, on the football field and off the football field. So I'm right there with you. You're talking about Kirk Cousins. I call him Captain Kirk. When he put that cape on and he started dropping them dimes, that's when he's Captain Kirk. You know what I mean? But yes, it seems like throughout his professional career, especially in Minnesota, he hasn't really got the respect nationally that he's deserving of getting. And I told Pat Pete this. I said, I believe if Minnesota had a better record based on his numbers, Kirk Cousins' numbers, his name would be sprinkled in the MVP conversation because they're winning and he's doing great and throwing the football. But, you're trying to become a better team, so he's not sprinkled in the conversation MVP-wise. But still, people still disrespect him. Locally, with you being a local guy, how is the respect for Kirk Cousins locally?
Yeah, I think if we keep winning, I think he can play himself back into that MVP conversation. I mean, really, you look across the league and who's dominating. Obviously, Jonathan Taylor, right in the Indy.
Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, he's I don't know. He's got to be leading, I would think, right now. I mean, he's unbelievable.
I think they may give it to Tom Brady and then Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah,
it's a quarterback award.
Yeah, maybe that guy. I would say. Yeah, I think Kirk has a chance to, if we continue to win, because he's been playing lights out. So I hope he does. I hope he gains that respect that he deserves. But you look at the numbers he puts up, whether it's QBR, or whether it's touchdown interception ratio, the stats that really matter. Not looking at yards, but the stuff that really matters as far as taking care of the ball. How can you get your team in position in 2-minute drill to win? He's done that. But we shot ourselves in the foot with a fumble or with a missed kick or whatever. Right? It's been something that's popped up, and So Kirk kind of eats some of those losses when in reality, if you watch the game, it's not on him. But
no question.
In the NFL, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's, if you're the quarterback, you got to find a way to win football games.
Yes,
otherwise, people aren't going to give you that love.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it is a straight toss up 50-50 in Minnesota Viking fandom. Like as far as Kirk goes, like you find guys that absolutely no matter what, aside from taking us to the Super Bowl, that would be the only thing that would be like, okay, we respect him now. But like, that win in New Orleans 2 years ago, like that didn't win people over. Although arguably, I don't know, there's a harder place to go play. The Saints team was favored
in the playoffs, especially in the playoffs.
Yeah, those Cajuns go crazy down there. I mean, we all know that. So I think that won me over with his ability to play in that type of game in that environment and make those throws. But people just want to see him do that more often. And, if they get chances like that Green Bay, that drive in the last 2 minutes of Green Bay, like you're not going to find a more impressive drive than that.
I agree.
So it was fun. It was fun to see. It's fun to see a guy who's been there, done that, has the experience, and now is going to get his, what he deserves.
Yeah. And talking about, another pair of guys who don't get the recognition that they should get. And you played with both Anthony Barr and Eric Kendricks. They deserve more recognition, in my opinion, as a duo and as individuals. But what makes them so good?
Yeah, I think it's a little yin and yang. Anthony's big. He's 6'4", 250. He can rush. He's a big physical guy. Eric's, a little more diminutive, but he's a playmaker. He's an athlete. I think what sets them apart together is they're so athletic. I mean, they can do anything you ask them to do on a football field. But what's great with them as a tandem is the differences they have. You can do different things with them and be creative with them. And Zimmer's the guy to do it, obviously, in drawing up different pressures. And I think Eric's got to be all pro this year. Again, I don't know how he isn't, in my opinion. I love Bobby Wagner to death. He's a great player, but man, I mean, I think you're hard pressed to find a middle linebacker who's making more plays than Eric right now.
I'm right there with you. We had an opportunity to do our podcast from Vikings training camp. Matter of fact, next time we get another opportunity to do it this year, you should come out and join us. It was.
I'd love to.
Yeah, and we had an opportunity to talk to Eric, and that's the first thing I said. You know what I mean? Because I watched the game, and I'm a fan of the game, of course, former player. But when I watched the game, I'm like, yo, some people, there's a lot of guys that's doing numbers, but not getting the same, notoriety that they should get. That's the first thing I said. He was like, similar to what you said, like, yeah, you're right. I'm glad someone finally realizes, but yeah, he's been balling, and now Barr is healthy as well. So this defense is really starting to really show what type of group they can be. So based on what you're seeing now, healthy guys are getting healthy. Will the Vikings make the playoffs this year?
They are. They're going to make the playoffs, man. They're going to make a push right now. This is the time. I think that Packer game was sort of the weight that's going to tilt it in our direction. I think they needed to go get a win like that. Now, I don't love that they go San Francisco, then Detroit. I would love to go right to Detroit to kind of build on that.
Yes.
Detroit's been competing with teams, right? But that's a game we have to go win and very capable of winning. Because this Niners team is good, even though they're sitting there 5-5 as well. You have two teams that need the same thing, right? They're going to do anything they can. They're going to call the game as coaches to win. They're going to play the game to win. It's going to be aggressive. This is as big as Green Bay is, and you know this from your playing days. If you win a big one, the next one becomes just bigger, right? And the next one becomes bigger.
Yes, sir.
So you got to put all the focus on that. I know some news came out about Everson Griffin this morning, and it's just like, can they stay focused on what they got to do to get this win? Because you get this one, then you go to Detroit and get a game that's very attainable. Now you sit there 7-5, and now you're going to be in the thick of the playoff race. And with Rodgers' toe, not knowing how that's going to be moving forward. playoff team this year. I really do. But, like anything, win one, the next one gets bigger.
No question. I'm right there with you. So, most importantly, everybody stay healthy and stay dialed in because the month of November and December, either you thriving or you surviving.
Moving time. It is.
No question. Yep. You want to be thriving. So, of course, Thanksgiving is right around the corner. By the time this release, Thanksgiving will be here, basically. And we're all in the spirit of giving around this time. We should be in the spirit of giving every time. It shouldn't just be a situational feeling. It should be consistent, right? The spirit of giving. But tell us about your Lead the Way Foundation and what it does.
Yeah. So when we first came up here, and you probably had it with your careers, Brad Mattson, who ran the community service projects with the Vikings, he said, what interests you guys? My wife and I, and at that time we had just both had lost grandmothers to breast cancer when we were in our high school ages. And so we went kind of that route and said, we want to support, Zeta Tau Alpha and the breast cancer, research and fund that. And then we had our first child in 2007. And once we had Madden, we were like, okay, let's shift our focus of giving and let's create a foundation that helps kids with childhood diseases and cancers. And then in turn, go help hospitals. So now we're working with 10 different hospitals across the Midwest, from Iowa, South Dakota, North Dakota, Wisconsin, Minnesota. And we give them different resources. So we have Chad's Locker, which is a program we put in all these hospitals. We've done 10 now that basically looks like an NFL-sized locker room or locker. Kind of is wrapped in, my Vikings garb with my helmet on, and you open this thing up and it's full of iPads and PlayStation portables and DSs and laptops and all these things that families can go check out and use when during their hospital stay. So we found a kind of creative way to really give parents and families access to something they may or may not have. And then we run a bunch of different other different programs. We have a Field of Dreams program that we've done, where we bring 13 to 17 families in and do a sort of a staycation. So we work with Mall of America and Nickelodeon Universe to bring families in and put them up for, everything, the gas money to get there, everything while they're there. We give them some spending money, because these families deal with, when you have a kid that sometimes has up to 30, 40 diseases, and they're dealing with every day, it's nonstop. Like the life we've lived in the NFL, the life we live day to day with healthy children, like we can't even imagine what that's like. So just to give them a weekend of like, listen, take the stress away that we can, give them an opportunity. It just means the world to those families. And for Jenny and I, it's about building those relationships and meeting those folks. And then this year, another big one we do is called the Tender Heart Luncheon. We had 350 moms there this year, and all these moms have one thing in common. They have a child that has some sort of childhood disability. And some of these moms have lost their children. Some are going through it right now. And so when you meet these folks, it really puts things in perspectives and gives you the reason why you do these things. So we built just a great network of folks that have helped us. And it's just fun. It's fun to build these relationships with people, because when you have kids, like that could be you tomorrow.
No
like
question.
Disease and illness doesn't care how much money you have, and I think that's something that's really important to keep in the back of your mind.
Wow. And for, our listeners and viewers that are checking us out, if they would like to gather more information about your foundation, where should they go?
Yeah. So we do, obviously we're on all social media platforms, but you go to chadgreenway.org, and that's where that's kind of the vehicle for our website. So we're doing, if we're signing up golf foursomes, if we're doing a new event, we need volunteers. We built 3 different playgrounds now, 2 at hospitals and 1 at a youth hospice center. So we need a lot of volunteers to go out and kind of, do ribbon cuttings and help with construction and do different things. So you can sign up to volunteer, you can sign up to give, you can do all those things at chadgreenway.org. So that's probably the easiest way to come get us.
There you have it, listeners and viewers. You want to learn more about Chad's awesome foundation, chadgreenway.org, Lead the Way Foundation, doing some tremendous things in the community with children, with families. Lead the Way Foundation, chadgreenway.org is where you should go. Now, we're about to wrap it up, and normally we reserve this section of our show for the superlative part, where we hit you with rapid fire questions. But you're such a fan favorite, and when we found out you were coming on the show, we let some of our listeners and our viewers know, and they just started to pour in questions left and right from everywhere, left and right, from the Midwest, from the West, from the South, from the North, everywhere. So what we did was we picked out just a few, Chad, because we don't want to be before you too long, and we know you're traveling. But we got a few questions, right, from a few fans. This first question comes from @A-Train Aiken. What was the hardest part in transitioning from 9-man football to college football?
complex defensive schemes, right? I mean, I came from a super simple system, and all of a sudden you add two more guys. The field's bigger as well, so we played on a smaller field. We played on an 80 by 40 field. So I would say the hardest thing was just defensive scheme, just more things, more moving parts.
Okay. Thank you, A-Train, for that question. The next question is coming from Tony at Tony Hypham, at Tony Hypham. Best Metrodome memory.
Dallas Cowboys playoff win 2009. It was, and I would say that's 1A. 1B is beating the Gophers my junior year in 05-04 season. And third, and then 1C would be 2001. 2002. We beat the Gophers to go 11-1, and we took the goalposts out of the Metrodome, which isn't even possible because there's rotating doors. So I have three very good memories of Metrodome. I love that play. I mean, it was terrible, but it was great. It was terrible, but it was great at the same time. It was so loud.
Yeah, it was super loud, man. We played there in 05. That was my first time ever playing. My first and only time playing there. When I tell you it was loud,
crazy. Yes, it different was. Level.
And you gave us 3 games, and 2 of those games include the Minnesota Gophers.
Exactly.
The hate is still real, huh? It's still real.
That's right. Well, it's funny because when you've been up here for 15 years, or however long it's been now, I'm a big Gopher fan, but not when they play Iowa, of course. You gotta have your separation somewhere.
Exactly. Thank you, Tony, for that question. Our next question is coming from at Cody Waller. What is the Vikings' biggest need in free agency or the draft next year?
Oh man, that's a big question. I'm a big offensive line guy, but I think this year, we need to focus on defensive line. You have Daniil, who's going to be coming off injury. You want to find somebody to go opposite Daniil that's going to be a younger guy that you can count on for a number of years. Obviously, Everson's came in and done a great job. We found kind of some patchwork ways to have some success, but we need to find sort of that guy that can let Daniil do his thing. And when you have another guy on the other side, that makes things a lot easier. That in the back end, I don't know how long Patrick's going to play, but we got to look at, you always got to get younger in the back end because it is a premium right now to find guys that can cover.
No question. The final question is coming from at Louis Caro 13. When is Grey Duck selling on the West Coast? And Grey Duck is Chad's vodka company. So he's trying to figure out what's up when it's going to sell on the West Coast.
Yeah, we have Grey Duck is our spirits brand. We launched 3 years ago. It's been a lot of fun. Learned a lot. We're in 5 states here in the Midwest. I don't know that Grey Duck spirits will ever be on the West Coast, but one of our products will be in the next year. So there's more coming on that. So we're launching more of a national model with a couple different products in our spirits company that is it's going to be really fun. So I might have to hit you up on the side for this one too. I might have some opportunities for you.
Okay, no, it's no question. I'm right there with you. And tell us, so when you decided to get into the vodka game, what was your thought process? What do you want to do? You know what I mean?
Yes.
What do you want consumers to feel when they're drinking your vodka?
Yeah, so we launched it with a very Minnesota centric concept. Grey Duck is, the concept of Grey Duck is that everybody, the kids growing up in Minnesota, play the game Duck Duck Grey Duck rather than Duck Duck Goose. Right. So it's just kind of this exactly right. So I grew up in South Dakota, we played Duck Duck Goose, but my kids grew up in Minnesota. They played Duck Duck Grey Duck when you play in the kids games. And Minnesotans are very proud of this. So we built a company around that name and have focused it on Minnesota. So we buy our corn from Minnesota farmers. We distill it in Benson, Minnesota, which is west central Minnesota, kind of out in farm country. And then we do the final filtration, bottling, and packaging in Burnsville. So it's all Minnesota based. It's all Minnesota guys that are behind the company. There's 4 of us that are partners on it. And it's been a labor of love. It's been a lot of hard work, but it's been a lot of fun. And then now we've launched a seltzer about 8 months ago as well. So we have a seltzer that goes behind it. And we have some other products that we're working on right now to get to market. So I would say I never ever saw myself in that business, but it has been a lot of fun and a great learning curve, which I think is always fun to start, keep learning new stuff. No question.
Thank you, Louis Caro, for that question. Man, like I said, we had to cap it off with only 4. I mean, they were pouring in left and right, Chad. You're still a big time fan favorite.
I love it.
With the Minnesota Vikings, man. So they still rocking with you, man. And listen, this was a pleasure. I think this is our first remote car podcast that we actually did. We did one with Dominique Wilkins, but he was stationary because he was the driver, so he pulled over. But this is the first time we did one with actually the car in action. Like you said, your wife is driving and everyone is safe. All the protocols are being utilized the right way. Seat belts and car seats, definitely. But thank you for joining us here, man. Standout linebacker from Iowa, first round selection by the Minnesota Vikings 2006, two-time Pro Bowler, but we talked about that. They kind of limit you. You should have had 3 or 4 more.
They're hating.
Hating big time. But you know what? You still make the most of your career, man. Coming from South Dakota, man. Chad Greenway joining us here, all things covered, man. I know this is going to be a big-time fan favorite for the Minnesota Vikings because they still love you dearly, Chad. Thank you for joining me.